This image I'm going to go through some basic masking and how to tidy it up a wee bit. The first thing is I'm just going to switch the eye off beside the beehive and also the map of New Zealand. I'm not going to use those images. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy up this one because this is going to be used as the main image. Now the image should be brought in as large as it can, but in this case I'm just going to scale it up. I click on the layer, which is this first one in the side panel. If I go Command T, it's exactly the same as coming up to Edit, Transform, and you can actually see it here. Scale, Command T. When these come up, I just drag on the corners and it's going to scale it up. I then hit Return or Enter, and that takes effect. It changes it to that size. Now with the mask here, we're missing images out of the bottom. The only reason we can't see these images is because of the mask. So if I click on the mask, and then whether I use a fill or whether I use a paintbrush, as long as I'm using white, so I can see white here, I'm just going to change this to a normal brush because I had a different one set up. Close it by hitting on the top up here, and so white will let me see the image. So I can just paint it back in. Now the thing here is that this is the mask, but if I click on the image, then I'm using the image to make the selection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the selection tool that says quick mask selection, but it's a paintbrush, and then I'm just going to run around here. You can see it's trying to select things. If I hold down the shift, I can add to that, and it's not perfect, but I come along here holding down the shift key and adding to the selection. I don't want this bit, so I'll take it out. Now there's bits that I want to add back in. Because this is the selection here, if I hold down the Option key, it will subtract. So holding down the Shift key adds, and holding down the Option key subtracts. So if I subtract this, now it's coming back to just the selection here. I want to be able to see this, so hold down the Option key. Holding down the Option key, I'm just adding the feet back in. Option key. If it goes too far, you can use the Shift key and just kind of add back into it. So here, I want to be able to see this. Option key. Option key there. So you should be able to see what's happening. This is the area that I've got selected. Now, I want to fill it with black. And so I go to the mask, because it's the mask that I want to fill with black. I can see black as my background color, so I could go Option Command Delete, which would fill with the background color. But in this case, I'm just going to go up to Edit, Fill, and just pick background color, or I can actually just go black. 100%. Good. This is the long way of going about it. Now I've got what I want. I'll go Command D. Command D or Control D gets rid of that selection. Now you can fine tune it. If I come up here, I can see that there's a gap between here. So if I've got the normal paintbrush tool, I can click on here and I can decide maybe not 100%. I'll make it a little wee bit softer. The size can be a lot smaller. Click up here to close it, and it could still be smaller, so I just use the left square bracket, which makes the paintbrush smaller. As long, check over here, as long as you're on your mask and you can see it's got that square around it, then I change it so black's the foreground color, because I want to paint with black, because I know that black blocks it out. You can see here, to get this sharp edge, if I come down here, I've gone over the boy's shoes, but I've got that edge there. So if I go and hit this little double arrow and flip it around, white will get rid of the black and I will be able to see the boy's shoes. So I can get a nice hard edge. If I make a tiny, tiny little brush, swing it around to black. Remember, black blocks, so it will block the image. I can get that little bit in there. You can see there's little bits here, that little corner. So I can endlessly tidy it up with black and white as long as I'm on the mask. So I've got this image how I want it. If I come up and have a look at the dancer, it's the same thing. I still have the paintbrush with black. I click on the mask for her so you can see the corners are highlighted, and that means I'm just going to use right square bracket or enlarge that brush a bit. So with black it's going to mask it out. So I can actually tidy up her arm because it is a bit rough at the moment. Come in here. I'm doing it pretty quickly and crudely and without a mouse, so it's a little bit rough, but it's still looking better than what it was. You can see her here, there's a big area here, we can take that out. Actually, her headdress and tidy it up. And you can do the same thing, you can go around the edge of the dress because no one knows the edge of it. This bit here you can actually ease into it, you know, it doesn't matter if you go across the lines, it's still going to look like a dress. Down here. Good, so we're starting to make a difference with the way this image looks. You can see as well around the top some of these areas, the selection has been quite rough. Sometimes when the computer selects it, it doesn't do a good job, so you do have to come in and tidy it up if it does that. You don't want these bits of the background being attached to your image. You can round the edges so it doesn't have a hard edge at the top. What I'm doing is painting with black on the mask. Command 0 adds it in here. There's another bit here if I actually have a look. If I go to the building and I click on the mask for the church, you can see there's a bit of red showing through. So I change that to white, make the brush a bit bigger by using the right square bracket, and I can paint that bit in, I can fill it in. So I can see the whole door. Black block, so I can see there's a blobby bit here. I'll take it out by painting black. Same around the roof. You can actually come in here and you can tidy up these edges. This looks a bit awkward to me, so I'm just going to take off that whole portion. In fact, I'll tidy up the roof. If I click, hold down the shift key while I'm still clicking down, let go of the mouse, click up here, it'll give me a nice straight line. Even though I've gone over the edge of the church here, I know that I can just come in with white and draw over that bit, and it's going to fill it back in. So this is the way that you want to be using the masking. If I get the double arrow, I can click on my dancer. See, I'm clicking on the layer this time, and that's because I want to move it. I can go Command T. That's the same as going up here and going transform scale. It's going to make her a little bit bigger. Hit return, and I'm going to place it so her hand is over top of the characters here. So the next thing, just looking at these two images that I want to work on, is that the colours of this aren't very good. And before I do that, I'm going to double click on the solid down here and change it to white. It will be easier to see what's going on with a white background than with the red. Now if I click on the layer with the dancer and I come down the bottom, this little half circle will let me bring up something called hue and saturation, color balance. So I might just go to color balance, and I'm going to try and cool the image down. I'm only looking at the dancer. I'm not worried about how everything else is changing color. Trying to cool it down. If I switch the eye on and off, I can see how much it changes here. Now it's not light enough, so I'm going to click in here again, and this time I'm going to go to levels. And what this will let me do is if I move the mid slider, everything's going to lighten up. I can pull the dark slider and the white in a little bit just to give it a bit more contrast. Close it. Now if I only want it to affect the dancer, I hold down the Option or the Alt key, go between the layers, click. And the same up here. And when you get that little arrow, it means it's only going to affect the image that's directly underneath it. And you can see if I switch off the eyes, there's the lightness, and this is the effect that the color change had, the color balance. So it's cooled it down a wee bit. So now we'll play around with the figure of the boy up here. So if I click on the layer, Command plus, and if I hold down the spacebar, I'll get a hand tool, and this just means while the spacebar is held down, I can click and drag it and get it into place. I'm still on that layer, so with the arrows, I'll move him, and I'm trying to line him up with the building. I can use the arrow keys to nudge him along as well. Now, I want him above the church, so I drag that layer up. I'm going to go Edit, Transform Scale, and I'm going to increase the size of him a wee bit. Now what I'm doing here as well, so I'm trying to line up his knee with that so that it'll look nice when I merge the two together. I'm holding down the Shift key so I can just move him down nice and straight. And actually it's quite good because the other knee kind of lines up with the door a bit, so there's some nice things that are going on. Hit return, Command plus just to make it a wee bit bigger, and now I can start to play with it a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and blend him in a wee bit, but I'm going to try and select him as well. So on the layer, I'm trying to select his knee. What this means is that when I fade him, I want to try and block it when it hits that line. So at the moment it's just got his knee, and I want to affect all of this outside of his knee. So I go select, inverse. So now it actually has everything except for his knee selected. And if I go Command 0, you'll see that because it has the selection around the edge, so it's showing all of this is selected. If I come into his mask, so now I want to use the mask, black is the foreground color, so by using the little arrow, swapping it around, because I want to block it, black is going to block. I have to go on the normal paintbrush, not on the selection tool. I'll click on here, and I'm actually going to pick a soft brush. I want it right down here, the hardness down low. I can also change the opacity. I'll put it on roughly about 50%. Make the brush a bit bigger, What this means is now when I click, see, and I have to go over it a couple of times, otherwise I'll get this line that you can see here, just eating into it a wee bit. See, you've got that shadow, so I need to do it a few times because it's only on 50%. 100% would get rid of that. But this is a more delicate, subtle way of doing it. Now, I'll do this little bit here as well, up this side. Command D to get rid of the selection. You can see how it's blending in. Now, I'm still on the mask, so now with a smaller brush I might soften his there a little bit, but I'm trying to keep it different to the separate to the rest of the masking, so it looks like it hits this line and fades off a bit. Same with the building, looks like his, try and get it so it looks like his, and I can just click, click, click. It's another way, just trying to blend them in a wee bit together. Now the same thing with him, he's really very, very red, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the layer, come down here to the half white or the split circle. This time I'm going to bring in, I'm going to go for hue and saturation. Remember, it'll affect everything that's underneath them, so it'll affect the building, but I'm just looking at him. So I can take the saturation down. See, the colours aren't quite so vivid now. This is going to dial through a whole lot of odd colours, so I'll just take that back to what it was. Mainly the saturation is the thing that we're going to do here. Could lighten or darken, but I don't think that's necessary. Close it, and again, if I only want it to affect him, see how it affects the doors because the building's underneath. Hold down the Option or the Alt key, and when I get that little arrow, I clip them together, so it will only affect him. Now the next bit is I want to bring in a map of Wellington. This time I'm going to use the channels. I found a map online, so I'm going to grab this. Command A to select all. Command X to cut it. Close that window because I don't need it anymore. Don't save it because otherwise I'll be saving nothing. And if I come into the channels, make a new channel, I always like to start with white. So I'll go Edit, Fill, oops, not the mode, here, white. I go OK. Now Command V, I'm going to paste that map. It's not very big, I want it a bit bigger than that, so I'm going to go Edit, Transform, Scale. Can make it much bigger. I hit Return or Enter, so it's made that change. Command D is going to get rid of the selection. Command or Control D. And I want to go Command L because I want to get rid of the grey. I want to try and have it as just a nice, clean, black and white image. It's a bit hard to do. So while it's got a bit of grey, just because of the kind of quality of the map of it is, I'm going to click on here and I'm going to go to the Dodge tool, one that looks like a lollipop. Now, it's really low at the moment, so that's probably pretty good. I'll make a big brush and I'm just going over the grey areas, not too heavily, trying to do it as little as possible. You can see how I'm just kind of skirting over the map a wee bit because I don't want to kind of burn everything out. Drag, go over it again just to, and then these bits that I really don't like that are a bit coarser, I'll just get white. Whoops, need to put that brush back up to 100, and I'm going to make it a little bit a little bit more solid, because all I'm doing is painting out these areas I don't want. Don't want that. I don't want this bit down the bottom. I don't want this big line up the edge. So that's cleaned it up quite a bit. Now I go Command I, which is the same as going Image, Adjustments, Invert. So you can see here, Command or Control I. Once I have that, down here you have this little dotty circle on the channels. I click it, selection, go to my layers. I'll just come right up the top and I'll make a new layer. I clicked here because it always makes the layer the next one up. And for a start, I'm going to go Edit, Fill it with black. And I can see the map here, so I can shuffle it around, and rather than just kind of chucking it in the background, I'm going to give it a colour. And actually what I can do is I can choose a colour that's in the image already. So if I get the eyedropper tool and I click boy shirt, you can see that colours come up there. Now here I can either go Option, Shift, Delete, which fills it with the foreground colour and keeps transparency. It's just the same as going Edit, Fill, foreground colour, because that's the foreground colour, and Preserve Transparency. It's just quicker to use the keys. Now if I go Command plus and have a look at this, maybe that's not such a great colour after all. So I'll pick something that's a bit brighter. Blue, Edit, Fill. You can see we're still on that layer. Preserve Transparency, good. There we go. Now to blend this colour in a wee bit, I'll come up here and I'll go Multiply. You can see the effect it has, and you can go through all these and they all have different effects, but I'm going to use Multiply in this case. Now with this, I can add a mask onto it. So come down here, the circle within the square, click on it. I know that black is going to paint it out. So I get a normal paintbrush. I can soften it a bit, because what I want to do is this layer is right up the top, and I can do things like I don't want it over the boy's face, but maybe I can keep it in places. So that's a bit heavy, so I'll take that off. Take it off down the side of his face. But maybe I'll leave a little bit coming on. No, that's not too bad. You can see his face. So, you know, think about the areas where you want to get rid of it. I don't want it coming across her hand. I quite like that bit going across that one. Maybe I can clean it off part of the dress, but leave it on part. Maybe I don't want it to go across the window on the church, so I'm just painting with black. Maybe I can do something interesting here where I can paint it off this board so it looks like it's going behind it and then coming out. So it's these details that start to make the image look a bit more interesting. That looks a bit odd, so I'll take that out. And maybe with this bit here, I'll say, okay, I like the numbers coming down there, it's kind of interesting, but I won't have it going outside her her leg, so I want to clear this bit off. Now, how do I do it really carefully? I can use a selection from a different image. I can see there's the dancer, so if I Command or Control click on her mask, that shows just her, but I want to wipe it out here. So if I go Select, Inverse, it's selected everything except for her. So it's all this area out here. Come back up to the mask, see, for my map. Now it doesn't matter if I actually paint over her. See, it doesn't affect, because that selection's stopping me from going over her dress. And then I can take it out just on here. And this is this process of entanglement, Command D, so that you get these beautiful moments where it's here but it's not here. It's here but it's not over the dress. So it's this level of sophistication that I want you to start to work. If I wanted to move all of that, like use the negative space really nicely, then what I can do is I can click on the top image, come down to my bottom one, so not this color, shift, and then I click and it selects all of them. And if I make a folder, puts them all in one group. That now means when I've got the group selected, I move all of them around together. If I want to scale it a little bit, I can just go Edit, Transform, Scale, and it will scale the whole thing because it's scaling the group, it's not scaling an individual image. And let's see what happens if we double click on the solid, because I think it was red before. You can see it happening as you choose it. The red is too intense. Does pink work? What about a blue? Maybe, but in this case I'm going to cancel it and just keep it as white.